the Ruach HaKodesh in the life of the way. The Jerusalem assembly moved with a strength not born from muscle or discipline, but from the breath of Yahweh resting upon them. The Ruach HaKodesh was not an idea spoken in prayer or a symbol carried in memory. He was wind felt on the skin, fire burning within the heart, a voice that steadied trembling feet and lit the path in dark places. Without him, the assembly would have been like a body without breath, a lamp without oil, a vine without sap. With him they became a living temple, every stone warmed by the presence of Yahweh. The story began in the upper room when the disciples waited as Yeshua commanded. They prayed with one voice, and suddenly the sound of a mighty wind filled the house. Fire came down in tongues and rested on each of them. Their hearts ignited, their mouths opened. They spoke the mighty works of Yahweh in languages carried from distant lands. The city stirred in confusion, but the assembly knew. Yahweh had come to dwell among them, not in stone walls, but in living flesh. The breath that filled Adam now filled them. From that day, the Ruach guided every step of the way. When the apostles taught in the temple, it was the Ruach who opened the scriptures, making ancient words blaze with meaning. When they healed the sick in Solomon's porch, it was the Ruach who stretched out Yahweh's hand through theirs. When they faced rulers who threatened them, it was the Ruach who filled them with boldness. Their courage did not rise from within. It descended from above like the wind that shakes olive branches on the mountaintop. The Ruach taught them as Yeshua promised he would. When the apostles struggled to recall a teaching, the Ruach brought it to their minds. When prophets spoke, the Ruach carried the message like a flame along dry flax. When elders judged complex matters, the Ruach guided their decisions, keeping the gates straight. When new believers entered the household, the Ruach rested upon them, sealing their belonging with the warmth of heaven's breath. The Ruach also warned. At times a prophet stood and spoke of famine, and the assembly prepared by gathering grain for distant brothers. At other times the Ruach forbade the apostles from traveling a particular road, so they turned their steps elsewhere. He opened some doors and shut others, shaping the spread of the way with perfect wisdom. No journey was made without seeking his guidance. No decision was settled until the Ruach confirmed it. When persecution rose like a storm wind, the Ruach steadied their hearts. The rulers imprisoned them, but the Ruach shook the place where they prayed and filled them with courage that silenced fear. Their voices grew stronger, not weaker. Their steps grew firmer, not hesitant. The Ruach stood with them in courtrooms, in prisons, in the streets, and in the fields where they fled. Even when Stephen stood before men who held stones, the Ruach filled his face with light until it shone like an angel. The Ruach did not consistently deliver them from suffering, but he never left them in suffering. The Ruach purified the assembly. When deception crept into the house through the lie of a husband and wife, the Ruach uncovered it. Their sudden judgment struck fear into every heart, reminding the assembly that Yahweh dwells among a holy people. The Ruach exposed darkness before it grew. He cleansed motives. He stirred confession. He softened hard hearts and broke stubborn pride. Purity was his work, not theirs. Unity was another work of the Ruach. He joined the hearts of thousands into one being. Men from many regions, women from many walks of life, families with different tongues, all became one household. The Ruach cut down envy before it could grow. He healed divisions. He replaced quarrels with peace. He knit the people together like threads woven into a single garment. The assembly did not create unity. They protected what the Ruach had formed. In their gatherings, the Ruach moved with freedom. At times, a brother rose with a psalm. At times, a sister prayed with power. At times, a prophet spoke a word that pierced the room like a blade of light. At times, the assembly sat in silence and felt the weight of Yahweh's presence hovering near. None of this was chaos, for the Ruach does not bring confusion. He brought order like the steady rhythm of waves upon the shore, each movement purposeful and life-giving. When the apostles traveled to other cities, the Ruach sent them. When they appointed elders, the Ruach marked the men. When they wrote letters, the Ruach carried truth through ink and parchment. The way did not spread by human planning, but by the wind of Yahweh moving through open hearts and willing hands. Even in ordinary tasks, the Ruach strengthened them. When fear threatened, he breathed courage. When sorrow weighed heavily, he brought comfort. When weakness pressed in, he poured strength. When temptation stirred, he lit the path of escape. When doubt whispered, he reminded them of Yeshua's words. The Ruach was the quiet fire inside every believer, a presence that did not depart. Thus the Jerusalem assembly lived, moved, taught, prayed, healed, endured, and rejoiced with the Ruach HaKodesh as their constant companion. They did not walk by their own wisdom or by strength of flesh. They walked as a people carried by the breath of Yahweh, guided by his wind, warmed by his fire, and held steady by his presence. Their lives became a living testimony that Yeshua lives, that the covenant stands, and that Yahweh himself walks among his people not from afar but from within.